Alright, good evening everybody, and welcome into the RNGIDP channel. I'm Craig, your host, and welcome into another, well, I guess this isn't another game. This is going to be a game day recap. So what we're going to do on this video is we're going to bring you some stats. We're going to talk about game day 13. We're going to try and do those things. We're going to see how the technology goes and see if this thing will work out. So I've got the face cam and I'm going to have some stats on the screen, and hopefully this will work. So, you know, this is all about testing things out and hoping it'll work and trying to make sure that we have some fun while we're doing it. So this is the game day 13 recap. The first thing I want to talk about is game day 13 was awesome. 13 was when we really started becoming a tried and true streamer of this channel. I've tried it in the past and just didn't really have the equipment, and now I've got the setup to do it, and I'm just gonna do it. So game day 13 was I decided that was going to be the one where we started with that week and put all these games online, and it was a fun one. I enjoyed bringing it to you. I enjoyed interacting with you on the live streams with our little hashtag late night strat. We've had lots of fun interaction between Steve and Al Red Sox fan and Espo, and Henry Berta came in, and there have been all kinds of people watching and enjoying. And even after the live stream has been over, I've had a lot of people interested in the league, asking me questions, following me on Twitter, subscribing. So I'd say this has been quite successful game day, and I'm very appreciative, and I thank you very much for all the support that this game day has brought. So that being said, you're here not to hear me jabber, I guess. Well, maybe you are, I don't know. But we're gonna go over some stuff on game day 13. So let's try this first. Let's take a look at the standings after all the games have been played in game day 13. And hopefully you can see these. If not, they will, or they are currently up on the RNGIDP _ strat. You can find that right there. See it? It says RNGIDP strat. Follow me on there, and all these images will be on the Twitter page, and you can check them out there. So here we are. Okay, let's check out the standings. So if you look at the standings, and I'm looking up there because I can see it better on the piece of paper than I can on the screen. So I'm going to look at my piece of paper. If it's distracting me looking up, I'm sorry, but let's go through the standings. So first of all, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I appreciate you being here. What I've done is I've randomized all 30 teams, all the rosters on 30 teams, and I'm going to make a video of how I did that at some point. Maybe on one of these administrative nights I'll do it. I'm not going to do it tonight because the setup of this whole thing I got going on the screen was kind of a pain in the butt, and I just didn't have time to be able to prepare to do that and this at the same time. So what we have on the screen right now is the randomized Nuzleague 2015 set standings. I've randomized all the rosters, and this is how they stand after 13 games. So not every team has played 13 games. Most of them have played 12, actually. There's one team off each game day, so there's 7 games per game day. Obviously, if you do the math, that equals 14 teams. There's 15 teams in each league. One team is off each game day. There is no interleague play. Each team in each league plays each other twice for a total of 28 games. One home, one away. So it's a pretty even, pretty balanced schedule. It's a short league. I was undergoing a major undertaking by doing this, and I didn't know if it was going to work out. So I didn't want it to be a huge, long season, so that if it didn't work out, I was stuck. And I like to finish projects. I like to see things through, and I think that the 28-game schedule would be plenty to have some separation, get to know the teams, and be able to really have a good feel and know what these teams are by 28 games. And then we're going to have a championship series, which takes the 2 league winners in a 7-game series. And then all the other teams are going to play in a cup, a single elimination bracket tournament. And so that will be at the end of the league, but we'll talk about that in a few. So look at the standings now. Pittsburgh in the Kanto League are tops of any team at this point. They're 10-2, and we saw them the other night. We saw them playing against against St. Louis, and putting it on St. Louis a little bit, 4-2. Pittsburgh's won 4 in a row now. Pittsburgh is now 10-2. They've scored 53 runs, which isn't all that impressive. I mean, it's in the upper 4 or 5 people in the league, 4 or 5 teams in the league. But if you look at the amount of runs that they've given up, they've only given up 17 runs in those, 12 games. So 17 runs in 12 games for Pittsburgh. Their pitching is ridiculous. And let me look and see who their pitching is. So I didn't put these. They're not going to have the individual team stats, but we'll have some other stats to go through. So Pittsburgh, let's see who their starters are. Well, they've got Max Scherzer. Well, obviously that's a good start. He's 2-0 so far, only 2 earned runs. So he's given up 2 of those 17 runs. He's got 23 strikeouts, 3 walks, a 0.73 ERA for him. They also have Wei Young Chen, who's 3-0. He's given up 3 earned runs. Who else is their starter pitcher? Nick Martinez. He's 1-0, 2 earned runs for him. The league, or the team leader in earned runs given up is Ivan Nova. Ivan Nova has the 2 losses, the only 2 losses for the team, and he's got them both. He's given up 6 earned runs. His ERA is 4.50, which is bringing that ERA. The team ERA is 1.34. So he's bringing up, I should say, the team ERA, and not really carrying his weight for that squad. But can you imagine if Ivan Nova, who's a good pitcher, if he turns it around? Pittsburgh's only up a game, but this thing could be over for the KL. They've got to do something to slow them down and score some runs on Pittsburgh. And we'll look and see who plays Pittsburgh this week to try and slow them down this week. So game day 14 should be fun. That's a game that I'm going to be, well, obviously I'm going to be watching it, but that's a game that I'll be intently paying attention to, I should say, because of if Pittsburgh can get off of and get even more of a lead in the KL. Atlanta and Milwaukee are both tied at 9-3. Atlanta's winning on run differential, and you can see how I've sorted the standings, how the standings are prioritized. So to make it fair, since the teams aren't going to be playing the same amount of games every day, every week, they won't have the same amount of games played per each game day, with some teams being off and stuff. Win percentage will be first, win second, run differential. I wanted to base this on run differential as a tiebreaker because I thought that would be fun and give incentive to try and score more runs. Hey, Al Red Sox fan, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining me here. Thanks for being a big part of the streams that I've had. I was always saying before, Game Day 13 really took off for me here on the stream, and Al Red Sox fan has been a big support. So I thank you for being here, and we're going over some standings here after Game Day 13. The team I like playing with most in the KL is probably St. Louis, and St. Louis sits at 8-4. Their catcher, Hank Conger, when we had that game streamed, Hank Conger is a +4 arm, but he's been making up for it at the plate. But against, against Pittsburgh in that 4-2 ball game, he had some opportunities. A few people were on base with a couple outs, and he didn't come up big. So St. Louis has been fun because basically every time somebody's on base, they're going to steal. And it's fun that he gets out people, even when it's a plus or a 1-18 roll, or I think it was D. Gordon on Pittsburgh that it was a 1-19 roll every single time he tried to steal second. And I really thought he was going to get him out one of those times, but the luster is worn off of Hank Conger. But St. Louis is still within striking distance, 8-4. Arizona, San Diego, Chicago, all at 7 wins. LA, struggling. They've had a couple of injuries, so that hasn't helped them. Washington started out the season at the bottom of the standings, but they've made a hard charge here. Now they've climbed up to the 9th. New York and Miami, kind of some middle-of-the-ground teams. Philadelphia has started to climb. Philadelphia had won a couple in a row before this last week after losing to San Diego, or this last game, losing to San Diego. And Cincinnati, I feel like Cincinnati at the very bottom there should be better. And they just haven't. They've got Billy Hamilton leading off, and he just really hasn't set the table for them. I thought his card looks so much better than it has been in actuality. And, of course, my Colorado Reggie Rock. They really don't have a whole lot on that squad. And that's how you know I'm not fudging this thing, because if I was, then Colorado would be a lot better. I've thought about a few times. I have my own personalized strat card with my name on it and my stats. I thought about, well, maybe I could slide that in there. Nobody will know, and maybe we could start winning some games. Yeah, Al Red Sox fan. The Cincinnati Loud Reds, they're 1-11. They've only scored 34 runs. They're just not producing at bat. They just already 9 games back too. 9 games back, and there's only been 13 games. So Al's asking what the playoff setup was. We briefly mentioned that before. So what it is at the end of the 28-game season, Pittsburgh and Boston, as they sit right now, would be the league winners. And they would play in the playoff, which would be the championship series is what I'm calling it, the World Series. So just like in the olden days when you would win the pennant, Pittsburgh and Boston would win the pennant, and they would play each other in a seven-game series. The rest of the teams, the season's not over for them. They're going to play in a cup tournament, a single elimination bracket tournament, where teams from the KL will match up with teams from the AL, and that'll be our one time to really see the league's intermix. There's no interleague play in the regular season. We're going to see it in the playoffs, the cup bracket. So yeah, we got the old school pennant feel of you got to win the division, you got to win the league to get to the championship series. So if you look at the Alola League, the AL, Boston has moved to the top of the standings. Texas was there before game day 13, but now Boston sits atop after they won this week against Houston. So Houston dropped a game, and Boston moves to the top of the standings. The Texas, their one-game ride atop the standings was cut short by Minnesota. Minnesota, who's got a pretty decent team if they can hit. And they cut short Texas, and now Texas is 8-4. Yeah, it is like a soccer setup. Yeah, I'm a big soccer fan. That's how I came to know Tabletop Earl. I've worked in soccer media, or have worked in soccer media since the year 2005, I believe it was. I've had podcasts. I've been a credentialed media member for the Rapids. I have a stack of media credentials from every year. I think this was maybe it was this year. It was the first year I hadn't been credentialed for the Rapids since 2005, I think it was. So, yeah, I'm a big soccer fan, and I feel like the structure in soccer, while, you may, whatever you like about soccer, I know some people hate it. I know some people just go crazy about it and don't think any other sports are worthy. It's like you have this camp who hates it, and you have this camp who loves it, and no other sport. And I'm right in the middle, because I love all the regular MLB, what do they call it, major American sports. But I also have an appreciation for not just MLS, but international soccer, world soccer, club soccers. I really don't even like the structure of MLS soccer. I think it inhibits growth. We can get into that whole debate sometime. The promotion and relegation system I really like, and if there was a way somehow for me to institute that within this, I thought about it, but I didn't want to get too out there with. I thought this would be a difficult enough structure to translate on video anyway, and I wanted it to kind of be simplified but still have the same feel. So I know I'm rambling, but that was my initial thought, and so I feel like it's working, and hopefully you guys appreciate that too. So if we look at the standings, there's how many games? There's 7 teams within 2 games of first place. So there's quite a bit more game to play, and nobody's run away with it. I feel like in the Kanto League, even though there's a couple of teams there's 4 teams within 2 games, I feel like we know who's going to be up top already. Pittsburgh's going to be there. Atlanta's going to be there. St. Louis is going to be there. I don't believe in Milwaukee yet, and San Diego, no. Arizona, no. I feel like it's going to be one of those 3. Pittsburgh, Atlanta, St. Louis. In the AL, I have no idea. I really don't. Boston could win it. Texas could win it. Oakland could win it. Toronto. Seattle. I thought Seattle was going to win the whole thing. Randomize the rosters. I thought Seattle would hardly lose. They've lost 5 games already. They lost a close one to Oakland in the last game we played yesterday. They lost on a 4-3 after. If you haven't watched it yesterday, it was amazing. Jacob deGrom, go watch that game. I don't want to spoil for you, but Oakland and Seattle was a great game last night, and Seattle lost. So I can't figure out Seattle. They should be much better, and they still are within 2 games. So that one. I don't feel like we have anything settled quite now in the AL. The only thing we do know is Kansas City is terrible, and I don't think there's any recourse there. I think they're gonna be terrible. They are terrible, and that's just gonna be the continue of how it goes. And you know what's kind of funny is my team in the AL in Major League Baseball. My wife is from Kansas City, and so her dad was a huge KC fan, Royals fan. When they went on their World Series run, I was dialed in. I was plugged in. And the 2 teams that I like, Colorado and Kansas City, both are the 2 worst teams in the league by far. I mean, Cincinnati's there too, but Colorado's terrible. So is Kansas City. All right, so there's more standings. If you want to look at those more clearly, go to the Twitter page at RNGIDP_strat. It's right there, or this side, right there. And you can see those better. Hopefully you can see them on the screen. Al, maybe you can tell me whether or not it's legible on the screen. So let's go to some stats. Let's get rid of these standings and let's go to the stats. So what I want to show you is I have these on an Excel spreadsheet. I have all the statistics that I've input. I put these in by hand after the game. And I'll give you the inside look at behind the scenes as the way this looks. So I put these into Excel, and then I have these leaderboards automatically populated. So these will pop up with everything you see here. I don't input any of that directly. That all gets populated by formula and by I've programmed the formulas to pull all this information from the individual stat pages to create a leaderboard system. So I can quickly print these out and look at who's the league leaders. So if you're wondering how I'm able to do that during the broadcasts, well, there it is. So the league leaders. And I feel like it works pretty well, but there's one catch to it, and we'll zoom in on one of them just to see. So if we go through these, there's one catch to this system, and it's because of, well, if you look at these formulas, these ones aren't too convoluted, but I have an intermediate page that compiles the individual leaders from each team into one page, and then from there I go to. It's a big jump. It's a little crazy. So the one flaw in my system is that when there are ties, like if you look at doubles here, it says Mookie Betts twice, right? So when there are ties, it won't pull the second person's name. So if there's ties, it's just going to show up as the same person twice. I messed with this for probably 2 or 3 days. I watched so many videos on YouTube of how-tos on Excel spreadsheets, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I was like, as we play more games, there probably won't be any more ties. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't bring you any stats to start this season, because there just wasn't any usable data, and most of these didn't look good because they were all the same name all the way down. But now, as we've moved a little bit further, like if you look at batting average this is the KL, we have, and I can zoom in even further if that'll help. We've got DJ LeMahieu. He's hitting 500 still. Yeah, DJ LeMahieu is I know he won the batting title with this set, the 2015 set. But and hopefully you guys can see that. If not, all these are posted over on the Twitter page, and you can grab those files and check them out. But if you can see it, I hope you can, and that you can follow along. So if you look at these batting average, it looks nice because they're all different. DJ LeMahieu, Joey Votto, and Ryan Howard. And Ryan Howard was supposed to be a part-time player, but he's been hitting the heck out of the ball for St. Louis, and now he's in there every day. Hits, of course, DJ LeMahieu. At bats is where we start getting bunched up because the teams have similar amount of games. Doubles, triples, homers. It doesn't look pretty, and that bothers me. But hopefully it's okay for you. We got the top guy on all those. RBI, Kendrys Morales. He's got 16, but I feel like he hasn't been progressing very much. He had most of those early in the season. And Pittsburgh, his bat has gone quiet a little bit, and the other guys behind him have started to catch him. Travis Shaw, I think, had like 8 RBI in one game for LA one time. He had, I think it was 3 homers and 8 RBI in one game early on. I think it was like game day 5 or 6, and he's been there ever since. But even 13 RBI through 13 game days, that's pretty good. Morales, 16 through 13 game days, that's pretty good. I mean, I feel like it's not overly crazy numbers. Strat always says that they're the most statistically accurate, and I feel like that's pretty good so far. D. Gordon, if you look at stolen bases, has 11, and that's usually where he's at. He's leading the league every year, so that's the KL. Let's take a look at the pitching stats. And if this is boring, I'm sorry. I feel like this is more of, hey, this is what I'm doing every game, more than, hey, look at these stats. A look into my process as to how these things work. This is the pitching stats for the KL. Innings, Scherzer's there. Wins and losses, I think, are going to be a loss on these leaderboards because I'm not sure even with 28 games that we're going to have enough separation. I don't know, maybe. But already within 13, I don't know. There's not going to be enough starts for guys for them to get separation in the wins columns. Saves, that one looks pretty good. Jonathan Papelbon from Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got 9 wins on the season, and 7 of them have come via Papelbon's saves. And I think somebody else on that team has a save as well. Let's check that out. Let me show you a page here. So these are the individual stats that I collect. And if you look, the Milwaukee has Jonathan Papelbon has 7 saves, and Kelvin Jepsen has a save also. So they've played in 12 games and have 8 saves. So 8 out of their 9 wins have come with the save. So they're playing some tight games. And if you look at the back of the standings again, Milwaukee is has 50 runs scored and 45 given up. So yeah, every game for Milwaukee is a close one. So if you look at these pitching stats, every night after I finish my game, no matter how tired I am, it's a late night strat, I know, I input the stats. And I didn't want to go crazy with all the stats, so I just put the basics. Innings, wins, loss, saves, hits, earned runs, strikeouts, walks, ERA, and WHIP. The reason why those are DQ, because I'm using the same rules as MLB. If you look at the stats, they've got to be pitching 9 times the amount of they have to qualify, basically. So what is it, B3? So its innings has to be greater than the amount of games played. So every night I change this, game day 12, and it has to be equal to or greater than this for them to qualify for the ERA title. So there's my process. We can go through some of these things if you want. If you look at the team batting leaders, we can do that real quick. I also have these collected as to which teams are performing the best. LA, look at that, by far out hitting everybody else. 294 batting average for LA. St. Louis has been hitting pretty well. The home runs, Chicago is tied with somebody. I don't know who that is. I'd have to look at the individual stat page for that. Strikeouts, New York. They strike out a bunch. Stolen bases, Pittsburgh, obviously, with D. Gordon. I think the team stats are more interesting for the pitchers, though. It tells you a little bit more. So team pitching leaders. ERA. Look at the ERA for Pittsburgh. I know I said it before, but it's at 1.34. San Diego, not too far behind, 2.04. And then you get a big jump to Atlanta. It's almost 3. So Pittsburgh and San Diego have been pitching lights out. Look at that whip for Pittsburgh. Under a run, or under a walk and or a hit per inning pitched. San Diego's right there at 1 also. Miami, too many walks. Colorado just can't keep the ball. They just give up too many hits. And although Colorado has struck out the most guys, I think that's due to the fact that they've had more people up to bat against them. Yeah, Pittsburgh's ERA is insane, isn't it? 1.34. That's ridiculous, isn't it? We're through 13 games. It's not like it's a week into the season. We're at almost 2 weeks. And look at that ERA. What is that? That's almost 3. That is 3 turns through the rotation, basically. Almost. So let's look at I can show you the intermediate page, which might give us a little bit more information. So this is all the team leaders for each individual team. So like the team leader for I've got their abbreviations here. For Arizona, in average, the team leader would be Tyler Flowers with 244. Joey Votto for Milwaukee, 462. So this kind of gives you a look at who is the best on each individual team. And I use this data for, I don't know. I feel like I have so much data sometimes that I don't use it. I would like to be able to use this data more effectively during games. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to figure out a way to do that. Who are their starters? Well, let's take a look at Pittsburgh's page. Let's look at Pittsburgh and their pitching stats. So Pittsburgh's pitching stats, here they are. Al requested it, and here you go. So you've got Max Scherzer. I don't know. Can you see that clearly? I'm not sure if you can. You've got Max Scherzer. I'll give it a little boost more. How about that? That may be too much. Okay, we'll go there. Scherzer, Nick Martinez, John Axford is the closer. He's got 6 saves. and hasn't given up a run yet. Only 3 hits for John Axford. He's walked a few batters too, I guess. Rafael Betancourt, I saw him too many times with the Rockies, and I haven't gotten him into a game. So I saw him get blown up too many times. So he hasn't gotten into. He's the only one in that bullpen that hasn't gotten into a game yet. Chris Capuano's only gone 2 innings. So like I said, Ivan Nova is the only one that really stands out. If you look at this, if you look at that line and you take that out, it would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? I mean, Ivan Nova has both losses for Pittsburgh. Both of them. They're 10-2, and Ivan Nova has gotten them both. 6 runs. Pittsburgh's only given up 17 runs, and he's given up 6 of them. So, yeah, Pittsburgh is dominant at this point. Let's go back and look at the individual stats for each team. These are the team leaders at all these different disciplines. And so these, we don't have to go through all these, but I think it's interesting to just look at who's the team leader, like for home runs. The only ones that like really stand out are, Will Myers, Jed Gorko. They both have 5, and Jed Gorko is hitting like 8th or 9th in the lineup. It's pretty crazy. Stanton has 7. 7 in, I believe that's 12 games. Stanton has 7 homers. So I feel like the home run numbers are a little bit low. I thought we'd have more up to this point. And you can look at the these are the team pitching leaders as well, or the team leaders in all of these standings. So these are kind of this is the intermediate step at how do I make the league leader page. And I know this isn't all the most interesting, but I just wanted to show you the team leaders for each team. Lance Lynn has 3 losses already. Poor Lance Lynn. He's gotten tagged a few times. Yeah, we got to bench Nova. I think so too. So let's look at the AL leaders. Before we get done with these stats, I just want to show you some of the AL leaders, who's hot and who's not, and then we'll move on to game day 14 and look at the probables and injuries for that. So if we look at the batting average leaders for the AL, Eric Ibar took over the lead from his teammate Robinson Cano this week, or this game day. He's now at 468. Eric Ibar, he had a crazy good game, but he had a big error that cost him the game, if I remember correctly. Joe Panik, he's the DH for Boston. They have, I think it's Jose Altuve for Boston at second base. And so Joe Panik, I was like, well, it's kind of an atypical DH, but why not? Let's see what he's got. And he's hitting at 419 right now. So, and also Dominic Brown. Dominic Brown is hitting 405. Dominic Brown started hitting in the 9 hole at the beginning of the season. And now he's up to 405, and I've moved him all the way up to 5th, I think, in the lineup for New York. Yeah, he's been hitting. Nothing really stands out there that's too crazy. I mean, other than the 468 average, and the distance between Ibar and Panik is pretty big. Home runs. Valencia, who was injured in the last game, was hit by a pitch and got injured. He's at 7. That's kind of surprising. Matt Carpenter had 3 homers in the last game, so that propelled him to second place. Stolen bases in the AL, just not as big a thing. In the KL, I think the league leader had 11. That's D. Gordon, and Cesar Hernandez only has 4 in the AL. It's weird what that DH will do. It messes with you. It's a different style. I'm playing with the batter hitting, or the pitcher hitting in the KL, and the DH in the AL. The pitching leaders for the AL, let's take a look at these. It has worked. Boston is in first place. Joe Panic is a big reason for that. Cole Hamels, you'll see his name up there quite a bit. Cole Hamels has 25 innings pitched. If you're done here, let's scroll down here. Look at the WHIP and ERA. Cole Hamels for Toronto, a 0.36 ERA for Cole Hamels, and a .55 WHIP. Now that's ridiculous. Cole Hamels, I believe, threw a 2-hit shutout in this last game for Toronto. It was a 5-0 shutout against LA, and I think he gave up 2 hits. Cole Hamels is a man on fire at this point. The usual suspects of Clayton Kershaw, he's up there in WHIP and in ERA as well. Cole Hamels has been pretty good too. We saw him the other night. Strikeouts, Carlos Carrasco is just striking out everybody. Matt Baumgartner's there too. This one is the most surprising right here. Look at those earned runs. These are earned runs given up. Chris Sale has given up the most earned runs in the entire AL. He's at 17 earned runs. I know he's a lefty, and lefties, if you're new to Strat, they tend to struggle a little bit in Strat. There's something about the 50-50 engine being from the batter's card and not on the hitter's card. But it's not all due to that. Chris Sale just has been really super unlucky in his starts. Giving up ballpark hits, giving up errors. Well, I guess those wouldn't be earned runs, but just lots of guys on base that really probably shouldn't have been there. So we'll look at the team stats real quick. I'll make these giant for you. And I hope you're enjoying this. I know I am. I wanted to test out a way that I could show my face and show these at the same time, and I feel like it's working out pretty good. I hope you're enjoying it too. We're just chilling, looking at some stats from the game day. This is the cumulative stats through game day 13 of my randomized Nuz League. 13 games played. Most of the people have played 12, most of the teams. If you look at the batting average, you got a few teams over 300 there. Boston, Toronto, and Texas all hitting over 300. RBIs, though, that's the big difference. Look at the amount of RBIs for Boston to the next best team. And if you look at the standings again, Boston has scored 85 runs. The next best team is, let me look, is Texas and Toronto. They both have 65. That's a 20-run difference. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Boston just is crushing the ball at this point. Home runs, New York leads with 20. Triples, Boston has 10. Nothing else that jumps out. If you look at the team pitching, this is the ERAs aren't as crazy as they are in the KL. But Texas is whip. Texas just doesn't let anybody on base. Texas has only given up 1 walk or hit per inning pitched. Seattle's right there with 1.06. Texas has the best earned run average too at 2.6. So no wonder they're at the top. They've got a chance to unseed Boston. So does everybody at the top of there. Look at Minnesota striking out the most dudes. Cleveland is 5-7, but they haven't walked anybody. They just are getting hit. they just give up hits, like 119 hits. They're not fooling anybody. They're not walking anybody, and they're getting hit. All right, so this is a brief recap. Probably not brief enough. I've chatted a lot about this, but a look at the way I compile stats and how that all works. So let's move to the Game Day 14 probables. And this one may be hard to see. This is a photo of a picture, or of a something I was writing on. I just took a photo of it. I didn't like scan it in or anything. So these are the probables for Game Day 14. This will be how we spend the next 2 weeks on the channel. Game day 14. I'm going to play one of these games a night. Hopefully, I'll be able to play one a night for 14 days, 14 games, and we'll get this thing done. But if you look at the probables, what are you seeing? What is the biggest matchup that you want to see? And I'm going to grab this because I can't see the screen very well. And I'm going to look on my piece of paper. If we go through it, Arizona Arbach against Chicago Cub Chew. That's a team. That's a middle-of-the-pack matchup between the 5 and 7 teams. Rick Porcello against Henry Owens. Matt Harvey got injured his last game out. Yasiel Puig is still out for Chicago. Atlanta against Cincinnati. Atlanta with the lefty Carlos Rodon on the mound. And Michael Pineda on the mound for Cincinnati. They need a win in the worst way. They're 9 games back, and that seems like a matchup, a mismatch, because Atlanta is second in the league at 9-3, and Cincinnati's 1-11. But you never know. You never know, and we'll see. Washington against L.A., Iwakuma against Gonzalez. L.A., man, they've been decimated by injuries. Travis Shaw is out. Giovatella, their only shortstop, Giovatella, is out. And so we've been having to play, I think it's, who's the dude from Cincinnati that hit 4 or 5 home runs in one game this year? Scooter Gennett. Scooter Gennett has been filling in at shortstop, and so every time there's an X chance, it's an error. And I feel bad for Gennett because he's taken a lot of errors that he shouldn't have, but that's the way we had to play it with the only carded shortstop being out, and he's been out for, I think, 15 games, and now they're out with their Shaw is out and Michael Morse is out. So Los Angeles will have to do that one shorthanded. San Francisco against Miami. San Francisco's got John Danks, the lefty, against the righty, Ian Kennedy. Corey Dickerson I feel like he's been injured twice this season, and both of them. Well, the first one I think was out for like 3 or 4 games, and then this time it was 15. Alonso is out for Miami too. San Diego's got Jared Weaver, I don't know which one that is, and Anibal Sanchez for Milwaukee. Ryan Zimmerman got hurt in the last game for Milwaukee. He's been on fire, and they do have another first baseman, and I can't remember who it is. Oh, it's Votto. Milwaukee's got Joey Votto, I believe. And so he'll be fine. They'll be fine without Zimmerman for a game. St. Louis against New York. You've got Hahn against Odorizzi. Espinoza for St. Louis being out. That throws their whole lineup into a tizzy. We had to make like 7 or 8 changes just to fix that lineup. And Pittsburgh against Philadelphia. You got Nova, like we mentioned. Ivan Nova is turned in the lineup. Can he hold off cross-state rival Philadelphia and Aaron Nola? Now that we mentioned Ivan Nova, I'll be watching that one even more intently to see if he can, if he can get back into the clubhouse. If they'll let him back in if he gives up 6 more runs or 3 more runs, or if they just boot him out of town. In the AL, we got Baltimore against Chicago. Baltimore at 7 in the standings. Chicago at 10. They're game apart of each other. Morton against Guthrie. Boston and Cleveland. So Boston takes on a Cleveland team who's 5-7. But Cleveland, even though they're 5-7, they're only 4 games back. So you never know about that one. And Phil Hughes against Nate Carnes. Brett Lowry continues to be out, but he should be back next game. Toronto against Houston. Raisel Iglesias against Sonny Gray. That looks like it might be one of the better pitching matchups of the game day. Texas against Kansas City. Texas against Kansas City looks like it's a mismatch. Texas is 8-4 against Kansas City, who's 2-10. That is Feldman against Shoemaker. Tampa against Los Angeles. Scott Kazmir against Carlos Martinez. That one should be pretty good. Seattle against Minnesota. Vidal Nuno against Heaney. I think it's Adam Heaney. two lefties on the mound in that one. And then we'll close out game day 14 with Oakland against New York. That will be an interesting one. Oakland at 8-4 and New York at 5-7. John Lackey against Derek Holland. We've got some injuries for New York, and Juan Lagares got injured in the last game, but he's only out for one. Henry Berta joining us live. Welcome to the stream. We're almost wrapping up here, taking a look at game day 14 that we'll be playing later on. And for the next, I don't know, probably 2 weeks in real life time, I'm going to play one game. I usually play one game a night. It's 14 games on the schedule for game day 14. And so if I get to play one, well, actually, man, if I'm looking at the calendar, that would put us, oh, you know what? That would put us at the 21st. That would put us at the 21st of December. So that's doable. I was thinking that Christmas was creeping up. And we may have, well, we will have some days where we won't be playing games for that. Maybe I'll be able to sneak in during the day on those. But anyway, game day 14 should be, we should be able to get one game a day in for this game day. So let me know what you think in the comments, which game you're most interested in checking out, which one you think you'll be popping in on the stream for. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. I thank you for joining me. Hopefully this whole setup with the screen looks pretty cool and you like it. If you do, let me know in the comments. Give me a like. And I'll try and do this after every game day, and we'll chat and hang out and talk baseball and talk whatever else you want to talk about. Henry's waiting for his friend to drive him home from his high school. Henry, what are you doing, man? You're just hanging out? Yeah, Al says mash that like button. I thank you for bringing that up. It's the support I've been getting from you guys every time I get off the stream. I see that it's already been liked, like, you know, a whole bunch of times, and I can't thank you guys enough. So I'm gonna get out of here. I've talked enough, especially for a non-game day or non-game game day. But thanks for joining me. And until next time, we'll see you tomorrow. We've got Arizona against Chicago coming up tomorrow. See you later, guys.